let's talk about something that's everywhere these days, testosterone. You've heard the promises, right? It's pitched as a fountain of youth for men, a fix for aging, a way to get your energy back. But you've probably also heard the other side of the story, that it's linked to some really serious health scares. So that's what we're diving into today. This is the whole controversy around testosterone replacement therapy. We're gonna look at how this pretty niche treatment suddenly blew up into a multi-billion-dollar behemoth. And then we'll get into the fierce scientific tug of war that followed, trying to figure out what's real and what's just clever marketing.
So how on earth did we get here? Well, it all started with this incredible marketing blitz around low T, which basically promised men they could fight back against just getting older. I mean, just look at this number. In a little more than 10 years, sales just exploded. We're not talking a small jump, it's a 12-fold increase. It went from being a specialized drug for a specific condition to a massive blockbuster. And it was almost entirely fueled by ads you'd see on TV or in magazines.
And this wasn't just a US thing, not at all. You look at data from the UK and you see the exact same pattern. Prescriptions almost doubled over the decade. And get this, because of newer, pricier gels and injections coming onto the market, the actual cost to their health system shot up by a staggering 267%.
All of this crazy growth really forces you to ask a pretty basic question. Who is this therapy actually supposed to be for? And to get to the answer, we have to make a really critical distinction.
Okay, so on one side, you've got clinical hypogonadism. This is a real, diagnosable medical condition where something's wrong and the body just can't make enough testosterone. But on the other side, you have the completely natural decline that happens to pretty much every guy with age. The thing is, the symptoms look almost identical, and that's the gray area where all the low T marketing lives and breathes.
You know, the official medical guidelines are crystal clear on this. To get a diagnosis of hypogonadism, it's not enough to just feel tired or have a low mood. You need cold, hard proof. Rock bottom low testosterone levels, confirmed by at least 2 different blood tests, both taken in the morning. But here's the wild part. Studies found that tons of men were getting prescriptions without ever getting properly tested.
So the market is peaking, sales are through the roof, and then the first major red flags start to pop up from the scientific community. Suddenly, there are these really serious questions being asked about the safety of this stuff, especially when it comes to the heart. And this was a huge moment. Back in 2010, this big study, the TOM trial, was published in one of the world's top medical journals. And it was just stopped dead in its tracks. Why? The independent safety board that was watching over the trial saw a pattern of heart problems in the guys taking testosterone that was just too disturbing to ignore. And when you see the numbers, you get it. It wasn't even close. In the group getting testosterone, there were 23 cardiovascular events. In the placebo group, only 5. That means the men on the therapy were more than 5 times as likely to have a serious problem. Just wow.
And the warning bells just kept getting louder. A few years later, another huge study comes out. This one looked at over 55,000 men and found that for guys over 65, their risk of a non-fatal heart attack more than doubled in just the first 3 months after they started the therapy. By 2015, all this data piling up was enough for the FDA, the big drug watchdog in the US, to take action. They stepped in and mandated a new warning label for all testosterone products, spelling out the possible increased risk of heart attacks and strokes. This was a big deal.
Okay, but here's where the story takes a really fascinating turn. And honestly, this is a perfect example of how science is supposed to work. It's not a straight line. Just when it seemed like everyone agreed on the risks, new evidence started to show up that made the whole picture way more complicated.
So you're probably thinking, okay, case closed, testosterone is risky, right? Well, not so fast. Other scientists started digging into the data, and they began to question those early, really alarming findings. Then, in 2022, a massive study, a meta-analysis, came out in The Lancet, and it really changed the conversation. They basically scooped up all the data from 35 different trials. That's over 5,600 men. And when they crunched all those numbers together, their conclusion was completely different. They found no significant link to heart risks, at least in the short to medium term, for men who are properly diagnosed. I mean, this chart tells the whole story. You can literally see the scientific pendulum swinging back and forth. You start with that first trial showing a risk that's over 5 times higher. Then the next study brings it down to about 2 times higher. And then, poof, the massive 2022 review brings the risk ratio down to 1.07, which is basically no increased risk at all. Talk about scientific whiplash.
And remember, this whole thing isn't just about risk. We also have to ask, does it actually work? Well, a big trial in 2023 found a very clear benefit for a specific group of men. For guys who had both low testosterone and anemia, the therapy was way better than a sugar pill at fixing it. You can see 41% of them got better on testosterone, compared to only about 27% on placebo. So what about the other elephant in the room? Prostate cancer.
That's always been a huge concern. Well, the data here is also pretty nuanced. It does seem to cause a small but measurable bump in PSA levels, which is a marker for prostate health. But, and this is a big but, the studies we have so far don't show that it actually increases your risk of getting prostate cancer, at least not in trials lasting a year or less. Okay, let's take a breath after all this back and forth. A boom, a panic, and then a correction. Where does that leave you? Where does that leave doctors? Well, it leaves us in a place of, frankly, a lot of uncertainty.
You know, one journalist put it perfectly with that classic Yogi Berra line, it's déjà vu all over again. And a lot of experts feel that way because they see a direct parallel to what happened with women's hormone replacement therapy years ago, where everyone thought it was great until long-term studies showed some really unexpected risks. So let's just boil this all down. What are the big takeaways here? First, and this is probably the most important one, you have to separate a real medical disease from the simple fact of getting older. Second, we have to be honest that the long-term safety for your heart or your prostate is still a big question mark. Third, remember that marketing on TV is designed to sell a product, it's not medical advice. And finally, none of this should even be a conversation without a proper doctor's diagnosis based on real lab tests.
And this really leaves us with a final provocative thought. In today's world, with science that seems to change its mind, and with incredibly powerful advertising, making a smart decision about your own health requires you to look past the hype. It means engaging with the complicated evidence. And sometimes it means accepting that the most honest answer in science is, we don't know for sure, at least not yet.